Is it gonna do the intro?
There we go. We are live. I don't think it's
Hey.
gonna do the intro, unfortunately,
Dude.
because I don't have all them sweet buttons that Justin has. So you are listening to The Wire. This is very raw to our followers. We do not have our wonderful intro that Sahi does because our buddy Justin is the one who has all the cool buttons. He has that whole broadcast set up. So we're not gonna get the cool theme song. Sahi's not gonna rap it live right now, so we're good. But y'all have heard it before. It's fire. We love it. And you know what? How are you doing, man? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man.
You
It's
doing
going to
great?
be a fantastic weekend in sports,
Right. That's right.
especially in the NFL. We just had a crazy championship game. If you caught that, I don't know. It was a brutal beatdown.
Oh yeah, yeah. NCAA was brutal. And you know what? Let's just start there. We're gonna do football. NFL playoffs is mostly the goal. But having said that, Georgia, TCU, that was the biggest whooping I've ever seen. That felt like the
Yeah,
Super Bowl of the '90s and the '80s that we saw. That was unfortunate. What's your take on it, Sahi? What would you say was the biggest thing you saw out of that game?
yeah. When TCU got into the playoffs, I was like, "There's no way they're going to make it to the championship game." Great story. You love it for that conference and that team to represent. Was it the Pac-12 and the
Pac-12.
yeah in the playoffs? You know, represent their school and have a recruiting tool. And then they beat Michigan, and then I'm like, all right, dang, I wanted to see Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State lost to Georgia, and TCU versus Georgia. It's not going to be close. Not going to be close at all. I was telling people that all day, every day. The game starts, Georgia goes up 10. I'm like, see, yep, here we go. Then TCU comes down and puts one in the end zone right after I tell somebody, like reiterate myself for like the millionth time, like, yo, this is about to get ugly. I'm like, man, maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe it is going to be a good game. And then Georgia scored, and then Georgia scored again, and then they put another one in the end zone, and they just kept on scoring and scoring. And I was like, what's his dude's name? Apollo Creed's trainer on the ropes. Throw in the damn towel. Throw in the damn towel. Like it was ugly, bro. Man, what about you, man?
I mean, mine won't have all the charm and the histrionics, but I concur with you. Here's what I'll say. I did not expect 65-7.
Yeah.
65-7. Um, what I do want to say in defense of TCU is when you look at a game like this, I hope because some fans do this where they extrapolate like that was always going to be the score. If they played again, it'd be 65-7 again. That was Georgia playing the best I've seen them play, and that was TCU playing the worst they could have possibly played. To me, this is more on the college coach of TCU because it is a talented team. And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, in no way, 100 times out of 100 they play, TCU loses. I'm not even seeing TCU would ever win, but TCU is a football team in the near future to just be used to. Now, hopefully, they don't play like that, but they have a lot of recruits. They have people like leaving and joining TCU because I guess there's just a lot of money in there. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but over the last couple of years, TCU's been getting a lot, and they got that NIL, and they're really starting to use it somehow. So all I know is TCU has a bunch of recruits for this next upcoming season. Having said that, Georgia dominated. You know, oh my
Yeah.
God. Stetson Bennett, you know what? His 17 years in college paid off, man. Because this guy had a story. This guy had a story, like at the ripe age. I think he's actually 25. But the point being is, this is a guy. I got to talk about our accountant here. This is a guy, right? He is a guy. He looks like an accountant. This guy tried to play for Georgia, and they looked at him and they're like, dude, like you should be doing my taxes. Get out of here. So then he goes to another little, small school, community school, plays for them, comes back to Georgia, and they're like, bro, you still look the same. What do you?
Yeah.
This ain't going to change. And it took what's his face transferring over to Ohio State and then 2 injuries for Stetson to have an opportunity. And boy, did that guy, this is like, reminds me of Rudy. Stetson is like Rudy to me, because he's a guy that truthfully did not, like, nobody ever looked at him and was like, you're going to have an opportunity. They even told him, like, dude, you're not going to play. And that's why he ended up, like, not playing at Georgia when he first went. And, this is a guy now who went back to back. And honestly, he played a game. Now, again, TCU didn't play great, but his game was similar to Joe Burrow's last game in LSU. This was a phenomenal game. And I don't have the stats off the top of my head to go stat for stat with Joe Burrow, but Stetson went 18 for 25, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he ran it for 2 touchdowns on 3 carries, right? Like, how do you, that's the best, like, goodbye you'll ever see. And he went back to back, which again is super hard. And, this is a Georgia team that traditionally was running the ball over the last few years, and Alabama has been dominating the NCAA. And now what you're seeing is they opened up the playbook a little bit. They opened up opportunities. And, this could, I'm not saying this is the next Alabama, but Georgia lost 15 starters last year, and they won again. Kudos to Georgia. For the Ohio State fans, I'll say this. Clearly, you were competitive with that team, so you should be thrilled, of course. But, this story is about Georgia, and congratulations to them to lose that much talent, come back, and then just dominate. Now, they struggled against Ohio State, and that's what made it very interesting. But, man, I've never seen such domination in a national championship game like that. 65-7. And I agree with you. The moment I knew this was over was when it was 17-7, and then they scored again, and it was 24-7 or whatever.
Right.
That's when I was like, yo, it's over. You're not getting 3 touchdowns off Georgia at that point.
Right. They're just scoring at will. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't tough at all for them. Yeah. The real national championship was the week before, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what most people are. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. The Georgia
on your point on Stetson Bennett, like, just looking at him during that game, like, it kind of got Drew Brees vibes.
Yeah.
Drew Brees. It might take him a while in the league to get it together. Maybe about a good 4 or 5 years.
Then he'll be in the retirement home, man. Come on.
Yeah, but he'll play for a long time. He'll sit, rest his body. He's an old man now, so he gets some rest. He could play from 30 to 40, at a pretty high level, have a good 10-year career.
Yeah, that's true. The quarterback, if anyone, can play to 40. That's a fair point. I'm just concerned if he sits down for 5 years, his knees are going to be shot. Arthritis usually kicks in when you don't move, so I'm a little worried for Stetson. Let's talk about football, man. Let's talk about, honestly, we missed a lot of things. So just briefly, one of the things we missed that was I wanted to talk about, not because of self-interest, but the Bengals-Bills was crazy. We were there when it was happening. We were so confused, right? That was just strange. I'm very glad homie is okay. He got released today from the hospital. So I'm very happy about that for Hamlin. That's great to hear. We didn't really know him. We're not huge Buffalo fans, and that's why we were very confused when it was happening. That was one of the craziest things we've ever casted. And it was crazy because it was our first live show. And here we are, and this dude almost died on the football field. He had a heart attack.
Yeah, I thought he did.
Football field. We all thought he did.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So, that was interesting. The results are interesting. We'll talk about the results in a little bit about how it could affect the playoffs. It's a little strange what they ended up doing. But you know what? Let's just talk about that last week. And I don't want to go through game after game after game because we're going to be talking about the playoffs. So what I want to ask you, Sahi, is during the final week 18, what's the team, like the game you want to talk about? And then we'll do a game I want to talk about. So what's that game that you saw last week? I'll give you the options just so we know. There's Chiefs Raiders, Titans Jaguars, Buccaneers Falcons, Patriots Bills, Vikings Bears, Bengals Ravens, Texans Colts, Dolphins Jets, Panthers Saints, Browns Steelers, Chargers Broncos, Giants Eagles, Cardinals 49ers, Rams Seahawks, Cowboys Commanders, and the Lions and the Packers.
Yeah. I want to take the low-hanging fruit here, the Lions and the Packers. But if you want to take that, you can take it. I'm going to take the Houston Texans and the Colts because Lovie Smith got fired right after the game. And he probably knew it was coming. So he's like, you know what? They're going to fire me anyway. They're going to me over. I'm gonna put one on him. He goes for two, wins the game, and the Texans lose the number one pick to the Bears. Now the Bears are sitting pretty. They could. There's a lot of talk of them trading Justin Fields for Bryce Young, um, for somebody getting um, Justin Fields. And hold on, somebody trading up
Oh,
for to get Bryce Young or whatever.
yes.
I think it's all confusing to me. I think the Bears will be stupid to trade Justin Fields or whatever, because I feel like he's one of the next guys up, from the quarterback position, like a Patrick Mahomes. They just need to get some people around them. But Lovey Smith, man, with the Texans, I just wanted to give kudos to him for sticking it to him and losing them the
The
first
first
place
pick.
pick. Yeah, so I just thought that was hilarious, and I had to bring that one up.
Okay, I want to make a quick comment before I say anything about you. Brian Lee posted Bears will trade back to the Colts for Bryce Young.
Hmm.
You know what, Brian? Colts definitely need a quarterback. I could see
Yeah.
that happening. So thanks for your input. I don't disagree. Sahi, I agree with you. I'd also like to add context. I think it was not think I don't remember the exact number, but it was 4th and 20 they went for it too, by the way. So
Yeah.
damn well. He knew he was getting fired. They must have talked to him
Right.
before the game. So all this is going to do for front offices is they're going to recognize, do not tell the coach in good faith that they're fired after the game, because this is what's going to happen. Now, don't get me wrong,
Right.
I loved it. He had nothing. They gave him one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. It was
Exactly.
unfair. He had garbage. This was, I hate to say this would be, Lovey basically even said it, that the hiring institution for black coaches is a problem. And that was before he ended up getting hired in Houston. But this feels like just a Rooney Rule thing. They did it to
Yeah.
hire him because they wanted to get, I forgot what was that idiot they were going to hire, McCown or whatever. He's like literally never coached at all. And they wanted to hire McCown, who was a former
Yeah.
quarterback. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
he's a white guy and he's like 42. That's the point, right? So, but they saw the feedback from everybody when that was the rumor. So they immediately, in my opinion, they were like, okay, we'll take Lovey Smith, and we're like in their brain, they were like, we're only going to keep him for a year anyway, and then we'll figure it out after this. That's how I feel. Even when they
Yeah.
hired Lovey, you know, so for Lovey to go out there and do it, I loved every second of it. Like you are going to waste my time and my professionalism. And what he
Right.
said is true. Regardless, I'm a coach. My job is to win, right? My job is not here to sit here and like protect your first pick of the draft. My
Right.
my job is to win, and that's why he went for it. Now, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not the only reason. The real reason we know why he went for it. But it was also funny too because it went to the Bears, his former team. So obviously
Yeah.
Chicago's all like, "Lovey, come back. We love you."
Right.
But yeah, this was a crazy game. I was so shocked when it was happening. But man, I had not gotten hyped from such two garbage teams playing in a long time. It
Yeah.
was so funny to me. I loved every second of it. It's the most petty thing I've seen from a coach in a long time in sports, but I was eating it up. He deserved that opportunity to do that. And, good job, Lovey, honestly. Like,
Right.
absolutely deserves it. And while we're on the topic, since you already briefly mentioned it, the Bears now, because of that, have the first pick. And I'm with
Mhm.
you. I just want to say one thing here. Justin Fields has had no opportunities yet. And here's what I will say. I'll give them credit. I was on this Wire show saying, oh, he'll never have he's never going to be good because they'll never cater to him. They'll never let him run. And boy, was I wrong, because I felt like right after they said that, they started letting him run, and he had
Yeah.
900 yards this season.
Yeah.
And they actually didn't let him play, or he would have broke 1,000 yards and be the first quarterback to do so.
Yeah.
That's disappointing, but I'll say this. Wherever he goes, if Chicago does get rid of him, he'll have 1,000-yard season. He's
Yeah.
electric. And it's so strange to me because, we think of Lamar Jackson and we see his, like, just how quick he can, like, shift and his ability to evade things. Justin Fields, I never knew he was a cheetah, man. This dude, once he takes off, he's gone. He's
Gone. I
so,
really didn't know that either. He must have worked on that in the off season.
I'm telling you,
Um,
the only time I've seen something like this was like Michael Vick. In terms of like
yeah.
once he kind of took off, you weren't catching him.
Right.
It felt like every game he had a 50, 60 yarder. Like every
Yeah.
single game, once they started letting him run, it was phenomenal. He had a great season. I don't care what anyone says. I feel like that was a great season. They didn't give, and I don't want to rag on Chase Claypool. I've been really hard on him on this show, but truthfully, he had this first week where he had 2 days to learn the playbook. Obviously, he's not going to learn it, and he's an idiot, so that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Then the second week they only partially played him because again he still didn't have the playbook. Then he only had 2 other games with Justin, so it's not fair to judge him. But the point being is that Chase Claypool is the only thing they've been able to get him so far. Let's see what else they can throw to him. If they can get him something else and get rid of Montgomery and actually get around something more dynamic for him, who knows? This guy has opportunity. This guy, for instance, everyone's been talking about Trey Lance and that experiment because we know Zach Wilson's struggling and Trey Lance wasn't looking too ripe, and Justin Fields was an option. Just saying.
Yeah.
And that's what we were expecting before the Trey Lance hype kind of came in last second. It was Justin Fields going to the Niners. So I don't believe the Bears will get rid of Fields. I personally believe Bryce. They're only saying this stuff, in my opinion, to put pressure on Houston or Indianapolis, to Brian's point, to force someone to trade up. Like they're in they don't want the first pick for this reason. They don't need a quarterback. So they don't want to draft someone
first pick,
and have to pay
usually,
that first pick tax.
Yeah.
They want to go back because they want to pick somebody like 7th, 8th, so that money is way less and they can still get a great player, right? Like right now, what they need is an offensive lineman. They want, that's that 5 to 7. That's that sweet spot. That's what they want. They want an offensive lineman and then start drafting some wide receivers because this boy needs some help on the line too. But that's what I think is going to happen. I think he's just spicing it up because he even said at the GM that unless somebody just was explosive, they like Justin. And I think the only reason he was even saying that and not just saying they like Justin is they don't want to tip their hand, right? Because if they say we're not drafting a quarterback, then nobody's going to trade with them. So they have to at least acknowledge, oh, we might, guys. So what's the best offer? So that's how I feel about it. Anything else you want to talk about with the Bears or this game in particular with the Colts and the Texans?
No.
Okay.
No, we covered it all for right now. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about it coming up here in the offseason.
I'm sure we will too. And you know what? There's so many games I did want to talk about, and I actually didn't plan on talking about this, but then you said the low-hanging fruit. And you know what? We were talking about being petty. Let's stick to the low-hanging fruit. We're going to talk about the Lions. We're going to talk about the Packers. I'm going to go first. I loved every second of this. I loved it just because, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most arrogant and pompous people ever. And just for the audience, if you didn't know the score, don't know what happened, it was 2016 Lions versus Packers. The Lions were out of it no matter what because the Seahawks won. However, the Packers, if they won this game at Lambeau, they'd be in the playoffs. That's what this game's magnitude was. So for Detroit, it was kind of meaningless because they couldn't get into the playoffs. However, we were talking about pettiness. That coach got those boys ready to play because he said, if we're not going, you're not going. And that's what they played around, and it galvanized this team, and they beat Aaron Rodgers, And I'm not trying to be a hater on Aaron Rodgers. Just he's always like, for instance, they were starting off strong in a bad way, and he was just like, the receivers aren't playing good. I want them to play good. Then they started winning, and he stopped saying negative things, but he wasn't saying much. Then when they're really close to the playoffs, 3 weeks ago, he starts, puffing that chest again. He starts shit talking like, of course we're gonna win. Of course, like when they're like, oh, there's a possibility you can get in the playoffs. Of course there's a possibility. Basically like, of course it is because I'm Aaron Rodgers. We're gonna make it. And it's that's just who he is. A lot of people, some people like it, but a lot of people it rubs them the wrong way. For me, it rubs me the wrong way. I if you're gonna do that, you got to do it from week 1, right? Even when you're like 2-7, you got. If that's your energy, you got to stick with it the whole season, not just, now you're 6-7 and now you're talking shit because you could make it. I don't like that. I like it when it's the whole thing. Ooh, Brian's got a hot take. Hot take. Rodgers to the Titans in the offseason. It was rumored he wanted to go to Tennessee last year.
Yeah.
So, Brian,
that's been floating around a minute.
That's been floating around. You might be onto something. Tennessee certainly has a lot of things that they need taken care of. Nobody wants Tannehill as the quarterback. It is what it is. But we'll talk about that in the offseason a lot more, Brian. But thanks for bringing that up because we are talking about Aaron. Sahi, how about you, man? Is there anything in this game particularly you want to talk about? You want to stick with the petty? What we talking about?
I like Aaron Rodgers, I don't love Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he is what he is, but he's just so laid back and like cool that he doesn't have that when you gotta have it, you need it right now. He can't turn that switch on. And that's evident by all the playoff losses. In big games, he's either hit or miss. He can't turn it on. Um, he'll get down at a certain point in the game and he'll just start slinging it, throwing it deep downfield. He'll try to do some Patrick Mahomes type stuff, but it doesn't really work out too well for him. He's a great player, um, back to back MVP, but man, I kind of I was hoping they won. I wanted to see Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Maybe he does. Right the wrong and has a beautiful story and really sticks it to the man. Because he's kind of outspoken and they talk about him. Um, it's, it just doesn't seem like he really loves to win. He loves football and he loves playing football and competing. But like, say, like a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady, those guys, Josh Allen, those guys love to win. It's not just about playing the game; it's playing to win. And I just don't think Aaron Rodgers has that, and that's evident. Um, homie in the comments at the hot take said he might go to the Titans. I think he might retire. I think it might be a wrap for Aaron.
Hey, the way he was walking off the field with what's his face, it was looking kind, and
Yeah.
he wouldn't go to the cameras, didn't give his jersey away, said, "Homie, I'm gonna keep this one." I don't
Hmm.
know, or maybe it's Aaron doing what he does every year and adding drama and fuel to the fire because he tends to do that every single off season. But yeah, I'm with you. It would have been nice to see it, but I'm a hater. That's what I do on this show, so I loved every second of watching that not happen. But speaking
I'll
of this
shed a
now,
tear.
it's time to move on to our playoffs, right? We got the NFC, we got the AFC. Let's start with the NFC since we're talking about the pack. The first game we're going to talk about, just briefly, Seattle, San Francisco. Who you got?
This is the
What you
third
think's going to
time
happen?
these teams have played.
It
The
is.
first game, the 49ers put it on them pretty well. I think it was either week one or week two, week three, somewhere early in the season. They put them on them. They played them a few weeks ago. Game was a little closer. Um, Now they get to play them for a third time. It's hard to beat a team three times in a row.
Yes, it is.
And it's extremely even harder when your team has been through a lot of shifting, a lot of different dynamics. You trade for a player, you got different personalities coming in, and you got Mr. Irrelevant as your quarterback. Um,
Mr. 5 and
he,
0. Yes.
yeah, yeah, he got drafted that low in the playoffs. I mean, in the draft for a reason. um, the regular season, the 5-0 is cool. But the playoffs are different. All right. I know the 49ers are favored to win this week by double digit points, but with Geno Smith, Pete Carroll, that running game, Pete Carroll is going to have those guys ready to play. Kyle Shanahan, that his team has been to the playoffs. They're still kind of new as an organization. It feels like Pete Carroll's been in Seattle forever. Um, so I think they come into San Francisco and pulls off something nobody sees coming. I think this one might be one of those quiet upsets
Mm.
because you are starting a rookie quarterback. Yeah, you have a great team, and it's kind of like the Titans last year. Everybody thought the Titans was going to steamroll the Bengals, but I was saying the entire time, Derrick Henry's just coming back. They're going to try to force feed him into this game, even if it's just a little bit, and that's going to throw their offense off balance. With Debo Samuel coming back from injury, maybe they try to get him the ball, get him in rhythm a little bit, and that throws their offense just a little bit off balance because this is the playoffs. So I I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just jinxed the Seahawks. Maybe I don't know. But I'm looking at an upset right here.
That would be the biggest upset of the playoffs, my friend.
Yeah.
But what I will say, what you've been preaching, and real quick, we have another comment from Brian. He was mentioning something we were referring to a second ago. He's saying that Aaron Rodgers is too egotistical to retire on a loss to the Lions. One of his last. That's
Hey,
Brian
that's a
right
good
there.
point.
Brian, shout out
Good
to
point.
Brian.
Yeah.
So let me discuss Sahi's points briefly. I agree. You play someone 3 times and you've beaten them twice, or like for instance, the Niners and the Rams last year. Niners had beaten the Rams 8 times in a row. So everybody out here was like, y'all crazy. Niners are going to win. And I kept saying, hey, look, it's hard to beat someone 3 times in the same year. That is almost impossible. It does not happen often. I will say this with Sahi. That is a good reason, and reason enough why you could easily say the Seahawks will beat the 49ers. The other reason, to Sahi's point, is the second game was very competitive. It was not a blowout. I think it was like 10 total point loss. So
yeah, the score was 21-13.
Thank you, 21-13, 8-point game. Excuse me, under 10.
Yeah.
And to your point, Brock Purdy, who is 5-0, and this offense is throwing the ball more, he's Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah, he's 5-0, but he's also playing very aggressively. And maybe that aggression in a playoff magnitude game gets him rattled. He throws an interception. Now we hear, Brock Purdy's like a steal, and even if that happened, it won't affect him. But we don't know. That's the whole point.
Right,
He is the wild
right.
card. This is the wild card week. He is the wild card. We don't know anything about Brock Purdy other than he's played 5 great games, but we don't know. I will say in defense of the Niners, because I got to stick. To me, I'm Niners gang, unfortunately. I live in the Bay. Oakland left me, so I'm stuck with the Niners. I will say this about the Niners. I believe they're going to win this game, although to Sahi's points, there's a million reasons why they could easily lose. And I don't think this is such a mismatch that a lot of the media is already starting to make this out to be. I will say this Niners team, in my opinion, outside of the quarterback situation, is the best team in football. When you look at, they literally had a starting quarterback, which we still don't know if he's any good. Trey Lance, he's out.
Right.
Then you toss in Jimmy Garoppolo, which everyone's always said is trash. All right, Jimmy's there. He plays a great game. Goes into the second one. This motherfucker's out. And now they got their third string quarterback, and he's 5-0.
Yeah.
A lot of that is because of the way they've designed this team. They run the ball. They're physical. They have a top 3 defense. I don't know if they're statistically number 1. Last year they were. I think they are this year too, but I could be wrong. The point being is they have an incredible defense. They have an incredible offense, and it doesn't even matter who the quarterback is.
Right.
So they're a great team. They're on paper, you could easily say they're the best team. Whether that's the case or not, we don't know. But having said that, I believe this team's strengths overall as a team, even with the Brock Purdy unknown factor, will lean it towards the Niners. I don't think this, again, I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think people are absolutely underrating the Seahawks. And Alex also said, no chance, Sahi. He said, Geno hasn't been in the playoffs either. He's been holding clipboards for a decade, and that defense.
He's been holding a clipboard in the NFL for a decade, getting coached by one of the greatest ever, Pete Carroll. Brock Purdy's been in the NFL for a couple months. I don't know.
I'll say this: if Geno wins, Alex, he ain't gonna write you back. That's for sure.
Right?
That ain't happening. All right, we're gonna talk about the next game. So we got Sahi sticking with the Hawks. I'm going with the Niners. We got the Giants and we got Minnesota. How do you think this is gonna go?
Oh, how is this going to go? I think this one's a little tougher to call, but not tougher, but I think it's easier for the Vikings. I think it's an easier path for the Vikings. I'm not going to go for the upset 2 picks in a row, even though I could see the Giants winning, but this is kind of like one of those pick 'em games. Who gets started early? If the Giants can pound the rock, get running with Saquon early, they have a chance. But we've seen the Vikings come back a time or two. They had the biggest comeback in NFL history this year, so you can never count them out. So you don't really. This is going to be one of the most exciting games in the playoffs. I could say that because you don't know who's going to win. I think it's going to be back and forth. But I think Kirk Cousins steps up this time in a big prime time game and proves finally that he can win the big one. You know,
Yeah, here's what I'll say to Sahih's point. And by the way, Brian Leese's defense wins championships, Sahih. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say.
it's true.
I'm with you on this game. Now, I could see the Giants winning. This to me would be the upset that would happen in the NFC, in my opinion. But I believe the Vikings will win this one out. I believe they'll win this one out. We don't. The problem with the Vikings is they're a coin flip team. We never know if we're going to get Kirk Cousins who's throwing for 500 yards or Kirk Cousins who throws 3 picks and 300 yards. We don't know what's going to happen on that side of the field. But I believe this is a team that has a lot to prove. They're ready to prove it. They're going to go in, win this game. Then they'll go in and play Tampa or Dallas, whoever wins that game. And I think they'll even win that game. And then I think they'll get demolished in the NFC Championship because that's where they'll fold. I just think they're just too mentally weak. But I believe this team is talented. I believe this team will make it to the NFC Championship, and that's where they're going to fold. We'll talk about it next week if that's the case, but I am sticking to the Vikings as well. And we got last but not least, Dallas at Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we got? What we got, Sighting? Dallas at Tampa.
Man, my boys made it.
They made it. I kept telling you,
just barely. And we're matching up against the only team we look decent against all year. And that was years and years ago, it feels like right now. So this is another one of those pick 'em games. I could see the Cowboys winning. I could see the Buccaneers getting a late, you know what I'm saying, late comeback. The only thing, Dak, he likes to turn the ball over. He's been turning it over quite a bit lately. So if he can take care of the ball, not turn it over, they can establish a bit of a run game. I think they win this one. But if Tampa could hang close, get a couple turnovers, just ride it out with the offense because we've seen Tampa Bay's offense all year. It's 3-and-out, 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 3-and-out. And at the end of the game, let's go hurry up, move it right down the field and steal one. Um, I've said this plenty of time. Tampa Bay has to be a fast break team. They've got to run a play, get right on the line. Run another play, get right back on the line. They got to move fast. Teams, they're too old and slow to be huddling up and giving the defense chance to figure them out. So I'm saying all that as a fan. This is what I hope they do. Run some hurry up the whole game. Miss the playoffs, win or go home. So, but you got Tom Brady. Anything can happen with Tom Brady. So this is a pick 'em game, but I'm going to go with,
Tampa. Just making sure on the record. All right. Brian has it at Tampa.
You said it.
Tampa by 9. So here's my opinion. It's going to be Tampa. I don't even view this as a coin flip. And there's too many problems with Dallas, and this is why I don't think Dallas has a chance. Let alone they're mentally weak too, of course. But that's beside the point. I don't know what's going on, but for some reason, our boy Dak Prescott, who by the way led the league in interceptions, playing 7 games less than he played 11 games, led the league in interceptions. This is not his year. I'm not a Dak Prescott hater, but he's having a bad year this year. Objectively having a bad year. In addition to that, this boy is tossing to Dalton Schultz. I don't understand why. I don't know. Yeah. I don't get it. He targeted Dalton Schultz 10 times in this Commanders game, which, by the way, Dallas Cowboys 6, Washington Commanders 26, just to reference what I'm referring to. He's got CeeDee Lamb, and he threw it to Dalton Schultz more than CeeDee Lamb. Michael Parsons, who I think is one of the best defensive players in the league, disappeared. This guy is gone. And it's crazy to say this because he has 13 sacks on the season, but he got 13 of them the first 11 weeks. Yeah. This guy's disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. But Michael Parsons disappeared. That's why I don't even think this is a coin flip. Now, don't be wrong. So he's right. If the Dallas Cowboys play like what they're capable of, it's not even a coin flip. Dallas is going to demolish Tampa Bay. But it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And here's the other crazy thing. This was the dumbest thing they could have done, which was play Washington with their starters. I don't even get it. Why? all this did was demoralize them because they played a full game and
Yeah.
got destroyed by the Commanders. What he should have done is, if he really wanted to give them a rep, let them play 2 drives and then pull them out, and then you lose the game. Okay, but you can say, nah, starters didn't play. No, they played the whole game and lost to the Washington Commanders, and not lost to them, got destroyed. I think, what did I say, 26-7? Let me double check. 26-6. Okay, they have absolutely right now. They have nothing to go off of. And yes, Tampa also lost Atlanta, which was like, what? But at least, it wasn't 26-6. So to me, the mental edge with Dallas is just they've lost it. Micah Parsons is not playing like he's capable of. This defense, which looked incredible in the first 8 weeks, is absolutely folding. And so even though Tampa Bay can't really score right now, except when they go no huddle, I still have, it's Tom Brady. I still,
Right.
I'll take Tom Brady even with these guys playing like bums against the Dallas Cowboys any day of the week, particularly with how Dallas is playing. Yeah. Brian said, does Dallas blow it up if they get another first-round knockout, Brian? Well, here's what Dallas does. They fire Mike McCarthy. That would be the first step. What they would do after that, I'm not sure, Brian. I think part of the problem here, in my opinion, if we're just going to analyze this for 5 seconds, is that they let Amari Cooper go. And it would have been one thing to let him go, which I think it was like a 4th or 5th rounder. Is disgusting. One of the best wide receivers, like top 15 wide receiver, it was like a 4th-round pick. Because it was $20 million. And it would have made sense if their goal was to sign another player on their team to a longer-term contract. But they didn't do that this year. And even the Dallas fandom was like so confused. Then they're like, why'd you let Amari go? Well, the idea was Gallup would be ready, et cetera, like that. Well, what happened with the Cowboys? It took CD a long time to get ready, and Gallup isn't that guy. They thought Gallup would be number 2. He's not there. And so they let Amari Cooper go for free. And now I think this game is going to show why that was a mistake. They should have kept Amari Cooper. I still don't think they win the Super Bowl or anything like that. But Amari and CD, even with them playing like garbage, if they had both those guys, I feel like that's enough to get past this Tampa Bay Buccaneers iteration. Having said that, we're both on the same page. And Philadelphia is off for the week, so we're going to hit the AFC right now. On the AFC, let us start with probably one of the more confusing games. It's going to be an easy pick. It's the Miami Dolphins against the Buffalo Bills. Number 7. Man, has Miami fallen from grace. And I'll tell you what, I'll go first this time because Sahi's been having to go first over and over and over. I am going to pick the Dolphins to lose. I mean, there's no way they're going to beat the Dolphins. Oh, man. There you go. No, come on. Tua got like 3 concussions. He ain't playing. He ain't playing. It's like, this is what feels so bad. And this is my point that differentiates the Niners from such a team as like Miami, right? Miami, I'm not even saying they're a bad team. No, they faltered in the middle of this season and they looked amazing at the beginning. But the point is Miami impressed us, quite frankly. Their offense, Waddle and Tyreek Hill was the best 1-2 combo in the league by far. And, Tua is the reason they didn't even do even crazier numbers than they already did, objectively. But Tua's out, and the Dolphins look like trash. It's really that, and that's why I'm saying for like the Niners are good, whereas Miami, we don't know. Now, Miami is 2 stud, all caliber, world-class runners at wide receiver. But that defense, besides Xavier at cornerback, hasn't been that impressive. They've been faltering. This offense been anemic. That's the analysis. I don't even talk about Buffalo. Buffalo is going to beat the Niners. I think it'll be 10+ points easy. This is a Buffalo game, in my opinion. But Sahi, what do you think?
Yeah, I got to agree. I don't see how the Dolphins win this game, especially after last week when they played the Jets and the score was a whopping 6-9. That's not going to get it done against Buffalo. Mike McDaniel's a great story. First-time head coach, one of many first-time head coaches in the playoffs this year. But his team just doesn't have enough, especially without a quarterback in that offense. Like, you need a quarterback to run that offense effectively.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe they just line it up and throw it deep to to Tyreek Hill every play, and the Bills just play one safety high for some odd reason, and the Bills
Yeah,
and the Bills pull it out. I mean, well, the
the
Dolphins pull it
Dolphins.
out, but I don't. Yeah, I don't see that happening.
I'm
Pretty
with you.
open and shut here.
I was about to say I don't even think you were going to do a conspiracy theory like you would normally do, where you
Yeah,
would be like, well, maybe the defensive coordinator of the Bills is in on it with Miami, and they're going to go by
right.
safety.
That's what it would take. That's what
That's
it
what
would
it would
take.
take. That's what it would take for this game to go differently, without
Josh
Tua in there
Allen
anyway.
has to be out there point shaving.
Oh my God. Okay, we got another game to talk about. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Now, I'll say this. I'm going to start it off. This was a game that had a lot of drama leading up to it, actually, because of what
Yeah.
had happened with Buffalo. So, with Buffalo, Kansas City, and the Cincinnati Bengals, as we discussed when we went live, there was a player for the Bills who barely made it alive, had a heart attack. So, the game was decided to be suspended and it was not
Mhm.
completed. That was Cincinnati and Buffalo's choice, not the NFL. The NFL wanted to continue, but both of them said, no, we're not going to play. So it became a no contest. Over the week, they were trying to figure out what to do. Historically, what's supposed to be done in the rule book is that Buffalo would have had to forfeit that game. They didn't go that route in the rule book. I don't really disagree with it, but it is a little strange if you have a clause in the rules that you don't follow that clause. I know there's a heart attack, but the point is, if an injury causes the game to end, the team that had the injured player is supposed to forfeit. So since that didn't happen, it absolutely made things very strange because now you have Buffalo and you have Cincinnati playing one less game. That gives them a higher win percent. So Cincinnati won the AFC North without having to actually win it technically. Buffalo could no longer be the number one seed unless Kansas City lost to the Raiders, which please,
Yeah. Right.
that wasn't going to happen. And then so for Cincinnati, it was also an awkward game because they still had to play with Baltimore and they had to play the starters. The reason why they had to play the starters is because even though if Baltimore beat them, like it wouldn't that they'd lose, they'd still win the AFC North. But the problem was then it would be a coin flip on who would be the home field advantage between Baltimore and Cincinnati. And so that's where a lot of this drama happened, right? Because
Mm,
I am a division winner, and I could lose the coin flip to the other team on home field
right.
advantage. The other thing that made it really weird, and this is where Cincinnati was very upset, is that there was that part. If Buffalo and Kansas City play, it'll be at a neutral field. But if Buffalo and Cincinnati play, Cincinnati has to play at Buffalo. So Cincinnati was very mad because they felt like they got completely gypped. We have to coin flip with our opponent, even though we're the champs. Then if we play Buffalo, we have to play at their home. But if Buffalo plays Kansas City, they're on a neutral site. So it should have been Cincinnati's argument was it should either be all neutral site at that point, or then that Buffalo would also have to play Kansas City. So that was where the drama is. The point is that's what happened. It's
Yeah.
the league did what they thought was best. I think it's kind of absurd to be upset with Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati. None of them are obviously wanting this to happen. It is what it is. They all
Right.
abstained from the voting, right? Because they didn't want to like change the integrity of the rest of the league's decision on this. And so that was the result. So having said that, we have Baltimore playing Cincinnati. There's a lot of drama. I just wanted to go through that so we understand. I believe this is going to be a very annoying game. I'm a Cincinnati fan, obviously. If you're a Bengals fan, you know there's only one team Joe Burrow played really bad against this year, and it was both games with Baltimore.
Yeah.
Baltimore, for whatever reason, has his number. He looked terrible. He always looks terrible against Baltimore, but particularly this season, he has not looked good. So this is a game where it could surprisingly go to Baltimore. As a Bengals fan, I'm not going to go that way, but I'm just saying it could easily go to Baltimore. However, with Baltimore, Lamar Jackson's probably not playing, and there's a lot of
Yep.
drama with that. I do want to address that, but not this episode. We're probably going to talk about it more in the off season. But Baltimore's trying to put the heat on Lamar Jackson by saying, "Oh, he might be ready to play," trying to force him to play essentially. Whereas if you're Lamar Jackson and you're a little injured and they still ain't paying you, do you really want to go out there, right, and possibly injure yourself further?
Right.
So I think we'll get into that conversation afterwards. I don't want this to take up the playoff talk right now, but if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm not. What has Baltimore proven to me that they're going to take care of me, right? Like his PCL's injured. He's still injured. He's missed 6 games. He's injured. And they're trying to say, oh, well, you're supposed to, this is the playoffs. You need to try to make this happen when they won't respect the man enough to pay him. So if I'm Lamar, I'm not playing. I don't think he's going to play. If he doesn't play, I believe obviously Cincinnati will win. Even if he did play, I think it's the Derrick Henry thing where, I don't see him magically just making it gel. So I do have Cincinnati winning, but again, this is a team where they could easily just slap Cincinnati. They have their number defensively. Joe Burrow looked like ass, which he does not usually look like, and that was not an impressive win last week. So I'm still picking Cincinnati. How about you? What do you think about this game, Sahi?
Yeah, my thoughts are this, right? I'm just going to come out and say it. I think Baltimore is going to beat themselves by by playing hardball with a Lamar
Lamar.
Jackson. Okay,
Yeah.
to your point about Cincinnati not looking great against Baltimore. Baltimore has one of the best secondaries in the league right now. It's quiet, but their secondary is really, really good. They're young, but they got a lot of players out there. Marlon Humphreys, you got Marcus Peters, Kyle Hamilton, the rookie out there. He's a big guy. So it's hard to throw over top of them, you're right,
Yeah.
especially when he's out there. And that's where the Cincinnati Bengals make their bacon in the passing game.
It is.
Yeah, they got Joe Mixon. He's a great running back, but they're not trying to wear you down. They got cool Joe back there, and he's trying to think, shoo, blow you down all the way down. That's why they give Kansas City so much trouble, right?
Yep.
But I feel like last year the Bengals were a team of circumstance, right? They got to the Super Bowl because of what was going on around other teams. I don't feel like they were the best AFC team, but they got Kansas City's number. They own Kansas City, which is the best team in the AFC, followed by the Bills. Now, if I'm not going to go there yet, but Cincinnati's going to advance this round because Lamar Jackson isn't going to play and he shouldn't play. I
Yep.
know he probably really, 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 really wants to play, but the Baltimore Ravens have got to pay this man. He's the youngest of all the young QB stars, right? And he already has an MVP. Okay. There's nobody in the league can do what Lamar Jackson can do. And of course he could probably play this game, but he goes out there and gets hurt. You're gonna be like, oh well, we're not gonna pay you nothing. We're gonna pay you, you're not worth it now. So his worth is extremely high, especially after the Deshaun Watson deal. So I mean, the Baltimore Ravens are going to destroy their franchise over this. And if they don't pay them, I don't know what they're going to do, because they built this team around Lamar Jackson. Every quarterback that backs up Lamar is like a Lamar clone, right? They all kind of look like Lamar, but they just don't play like him all the way. They got a little bit of the same skill sets, but they're not him. So, this team is built around that player. It's stupid why it hasn't happened, and that's going to be the reason why they lose.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Baltimore is one of those teams. We talked about them last year. We talked about them this year. I think Tennessee's another one. Similar to the Niners, but they're just really well rounded. But you know, they're well rounded around a player. That player gives
Yeah,
them dimension that they don't otherwise have. Greg Roman
right.
has built this offense, to Sahi's point, around what Lamar does well. And so they've
Yeah,
only focused on, we got tight ends, we got running, we're just going to run the ball. We're never giving this guy a receiver. It's just never going to happen because he's going to make plays with his legs that like we talked about, nobody else can do. And yeah, it's really strange because could you imagine, for the sake of the argument, if Lamar Jackson had more like buy-in from this team that, like as you said, he well deserves, and they would have invested in some quality wide receiver, even one, what this team would look like, right? Because
yeah,
we talk about Cincinnati, and I'll say this about them: there's a group of the AFC, and right now it's Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. And you can easily, arguably say Kansas City's number one. But the point is those three are pretty much better than the rest of the AFC. I think that most people would agree with that. But could you imagine if Baltimore just had one player for Lamar to rely on? That's not Mark Andrews. Like, let's be honest, what that would
Like
look
a
like.
Chris Godwin.
Yeah, maybe Chris Godwin.
I
My wife walked
feel
down.
like I feel like he's the perfect type player for
Sure,
that offense.
sure. I mean, and so I just want to give a shout out to Baltimore, regardless of the outcome, because this is the team. And man, what would they be if they just had a little more like buy-in for Lamar? Because I don't
Yeah,
understand what more could this man have done to prove. And he's already
exactly.
proved himself. There's nothing to prove, but they just don't want to pay him. And every year they don't pay him is going to be worse if they end up retaining him, because it's going to be that much more money. And so
Right.
that's why I'm lost. It's like, how are you not sold on this guy? That's the big thing and takeaway for me. And so, as Lamar, as a young man, I can't even imagine how he feels every day, the hits he takes, the sacrifices to his career by not having a receiving core, and knowing, that they've invested in this defense that he's talking about, that is feeling very Baltimore Ravens like their defense now. It's a shame. So we're going to talk about that last AFC game. This one's also an interesting one. I feel like this is a coin flip one. We got the Chargers playing the Jaguars.
Yes.
I'm going to let Sahi go on this one, though. What do you think, Sahi?
I feel like the Chargers are going to get this one. They've been a team that's like right on the bubble for a few years. Justin Herbert has just been gaining experience, and I think this is the time where he makes that leap and gets that first playoff win. I'm not going to say they're going to go on a run, but Jacksonville is a team that's just happy to be here. They played Week 18 for the division. This could have been the Tennessee Titans. They're a few plays away from not even being in this game. So it's just an amazing story. Doug Peterson should be coach of the year. He took a team that nobody was really looking at. Granted, he did have the number one overall pick quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, back there, and they've got great talent. I feel like they're a team to look out for in the future if they could manage it right, do some nice things in the draft. They're not going to have a top 10 pick this year. So they're not going to get the top talent, but they've got enough top talent that they just need to fill some spots, get deeper in the program, and I feel like they're a team that can explode in the playoffs in the years to come, kind of like what we're going to see the Chargers do this year. We might see Chargers Jaguars AFC Championship game 4 years from now, if both teams continue to build like they're building. And this is just going to be a fun game to watch if you're a fan of either of these teams. I don't think people from outside or around the league is like, watch out for these two teams. Either one of these can make a deep playoff run and go to the Super Bowl. I don't think we're going to see that, but it'll be a great show for the league for sure. I feel like I already said it, the Chargers for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a Chargers Jags, but I think, again, we could call this a coin flip for the most part, just because Jaguars are a talented team.
Yeah.
I also have to just echo what you said. Doug Peterson should be coach of the year. After that mess with Urban Meyer last year, the type of environment he fostered and created,
Yeah.
and a team that was literally the worst team in the league is now in the playoffs a year later. That's coaching. Now, we talk about Brian Daboll. There's a lot of great coaches, but to me, it would be an injustice if Peterson is not coach of the year. What more can you do? This is the Lamar Jackson thing, number 2. What more can you do? You were the worst team in the league. Your coach was the most embarrassing thing I think anyone's ever seen. Left the league, that had to be fired. The soonest anyone's quit or been fired because he was so incompetent. I'll never forget the line. It's like playing Alabama every single week. No shit, dipshit. This is professional football. And you can't just boost your way into the lead. It doesn't work like that. So I also want to say about the Chargers, because I know Brian's watching, and Brian was kind of hating on them last week, saying they're inconsistent. And Brian, I'm going to have to repeat what I said last week, man. Then wide receivers wasn't there together. This is a team that's 10-7 when their wide receivers weren't playing he didn't have a single guy go for 1,000 yards, and he still threw for 5K. This is an incredible quarterback. We talk about the Herbert Joe Burrow comparisons. A lot of people have been making them, and they're very different players, but both amazing players. And I'm not going to go into that conversation. I just want to give shout out to Justin Herbert because of his talent, like Sahi mentioned. I believe this is a game that the Chargers should win. I do believe they're better. I say it's a coin flip, though, because I don't feel like the Chargers are massively better than Jacksonville, but I do believe they are better. Having said that, I believe this is a team, like Sahi pointed out, that they win this week and then they lose to Kansas City. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Let's be real. That's going to happen. And we'll talk about the AFC side of things because what we both just kind of agreed on, it sounds like, is what we're going to see is that Buffalo-Cincinnati game that never happened is going to happen. And then we're going to have Kansas City playing the Chargers. And so then realistically, most likely, you're seeing the Chiefs play either the Bengals or the Bills for the championship. And either one of those is a must-see game because you had the Bengals who came back from a crazy deficit last year to beat them, or you have the Bills Chiefs, which was one of the craziest games I've ever seen in a playoffs game ever. So that's going to be a fantastic AFC championship if it goes, either of those directions. But this is football. You never know what's going to happen. Baltimore and the Chargers may surprise us. Hell, Trevor Lawrence may show us all wrong, and maybe this is that magic season from literal worst to Super Bowl run. Who knows? That's why we love football. But I got one more thing I want to talk about, Sahi. We talked about the playoffs, but we're not going to get a chance to really talk about this right now because the playoffs are going to be our focus. Who do you got as MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year? What you got?
MVP.
We'll start with MVP. Who you got? Who's the most valuable football player this year?
Most valuable football player this year. I'm going to go with TJ Watt.
TJ Watt? Okay. Okay. Yeah, go for it.
TJ Watt, the Steelers just win when he's in. When he's out, they lose. I think the last 10 games, it's like they're 8-2 when he's in. And when they're out, I'm not sure what it is, but they lose a lot. So I'm just going to go with him because I wasn't Offensive Player of the Year. And I said TJ Watt because everybody's just giving it to Josh Allen. I don't want to get an MVP to Josh Allen. I didn't do the whole entire year, even preseason. Offensive Player of the Year. I'm gonna go with this is a tough one, a toughie. I don't know. Defensive Player of the Year. Ooh, another toughie. I don't know. Let me hear some of yours because I got to think about it a little bit.
I'll give you some time since you haven't had this in your head. I've been kind of doing my thing since I'm the one calling the shots here. MVP. I like the TJ Watt pick. At first, it took me half a second to realize where you're going, but to Sahi's point, most valuable player. This team was garbage without him, and they still won enough games because he came back in time.
They couldn't make the playoffs.
When you talk about MVP, it's hard to not argue that. As Sahi points out, this is a quarterback league. Unfortunately, that's how the MVP is always going to go. So I'm with Sahi, and I refuse to go that route. I feel like we already know it's going to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. We understand that. It's not about what they think it is. It's who we think.
Yeah.
I'm going a different direction, actually. This might come as a shock.
Where are you going?
Where's he going? I'm going with Nick Bosa, actually, as the MVP. Nick Bosa, 18.5 sacks, sack leader. Nick Bosa had a year like TJ Watt had a year last year. Nick Bosa was double teamed or triple teamed. Double teamed 78% of the time, triple teamed 27% of the time. That means he had single coverage and one-on-one blocking 4% of the time. And this man still beat double teams 82% of the time. He pressured the quarterback 67% of every single snap he was on the field. This guy had a phenomenal year. We talk about the Niners defense. We talked about their team overall. This guy is the TJ Watt of the Niners. And to TJ, like the opposite side, this was Nick Bosa's only healthy season, and we finally got to see Nick Bosa when he's healthy. And that's 18.5 sacks, the most double-team guy in the league, and having an Aaron Donald, TJ Watt-like year where he was the most double-teamed and triple-team guy, and he still blew through the coverages. Myles Garrett, great guy, big fan of Myles Garrett, but he actually got some help and has a better line than Nick Bosa has. Nick Bosa had an incredible year. I believe he's anchor of this defense, and this is our picks, not necessarily how it goes by the media. So I believe Nick Bosa is the MVP. This Niners team lost both quarterbacks. They got a third string Mr. Irrelevant in there, and this man is putting on a show and has been putting on a show. For my offensive player of the year, I'm also not going to give it to a quarterback. I'm sick of that. We're tired of that stuff. I'm going to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing. This man was a man on a mission. This was a terrible team. 1,650 yards. He actually beat the king finally for the rushing title this year. Josh Jacobs had a big year. This was a contract year. This was the year the Raiders were supposed to do good, and this man is the man that showed up. Devontae did his part too, but Devontae, you could argue, is not the best wide receiver in the league. You got to put Josh Jacobs in the running this year. This fella, we talked about it last year. Jonathan Taylor had that great year. Derrick Henry got injured, but people still de facto say it's Derrick. And I'm not saying it's not Derrick Henry, but Josh Jacobs, week in, week out, is a monster. He reminds me of Brandon Jacobs. I know they have the same last name, but more athletic. He catches the ball. He can block. I am scared of this guy. I watched this.
The Raiders,
the Bengals look silly in the playoffs.
The Raiders wanted to get rid of him.
They did want to
get in the right before the season. They're idiots. So
this is a team. Darren Waller, all this stuff, and they re-up Darren Waller. And I'm not trying to smack talk Darren Waller. We love Darren Waller. He's a fantastic tight end. But now you put yourself in a position where Josh Jacobs is. He controls his own destiny. This is a guy. The Bengals have Joe Mixon. It's not like they could pick him up. But Josh Jacobs is the kind of running back I want. I want a big dude that, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, those are my guys. That's the type of running back I want. And Josh Jacobs had a phenomenal year. I want to give him the shout out. He's my offensive player of the year. And since I don't want to give Nick Bosa 2 awards, I will not give him defensive player of the year. I will not do that. I think that's a little lame. This has happened before, but I don't think that's right. So I'm actually going to go with a different surprise. I'm going with Chris Jones as my defensive player of the year, because Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs has been flying under the radar, as has Cameron Hayward, because of Aaron Donald's, historically. Chris Jones is a monster, and he is the only player on that Chiefs defense that I'm just like, hats off to you. I love this guy. This guy is a beast. 15 and a half sacks as a nose tackle. This dude is a monster. I love Chris Jones. It's unfortunate because I know Justin would be a little excited. I know his fiance would be excited. They're big Chiefs fans. Well, his wife is a big Chiefs fan. Justin's working that way. But Chris Jones, man, incredible season. Myles Garrett had a great season. All these guys had a great season. But I love DTs. I'm always an Aaron Donald guy. This was not Aaron Donald's year, but this was Chris Jones' year. This was a year where Aaron didn't play well, and Chris Jones is like, y'all been forgetting about me. I've always been here. 15 and a half sacks. This guy is the anchor of that Kansas City defense, and you're going to get to see him week in and week out through these playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, Sahi, how about you, brother? We got offense and defense for you. What you think?
Offensive player of the year. I'm gonna just go with the low hanging fruit as I tried to avoid earlier in this episode. Give me Patrick Mahomes. Okay. Patrick Mahomes boy. He scrambles around out there. You think he's about to scramble, and he does. Between the legs, over his back, flipping up. Everybody's looking down. You see him looking up, and the ball magically just falls right into his receiver's hands that you didn't see, but he saw him somehow. He just makes magic happen out there. It's got to be extremely frustrating to play against as a defensive player, because you can have him bottled up. You can have him right where you want him, and he's going to make something happen. He's the magic man out there. Patrick Mahomes, offensive player of the year. I don't know his exact stats, but I'm thinking offensive players, and I could just see in my head like him making all kind of circus plays and doing this and that. And his team's the number 1 seed in the AFC, right? In defensive player of the year, I'm gonna just go with a guy, a teammate of the guy that you gave the MVP to, Fred Warner. He's just a phenomenal linebacker. He does it all. He could cover, he could stop the run. He's really the engine that makes that 49ers defense go. Without him, I know but they've got players out there on the defense, all right. But I feel like as team wise, like the team gets their juice from Fred Warner. He sets the tone out there, and I feel like they're the best defense in the NFL. So I got to give it to their captain, one of their biggest stars, Fred Warner. So there we go. I got Fred Warner, Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Mahomes, Offensive Player of the Year, and my MVP, TJ Watt, which kind of seems kind of weak, but
Yeah, I like that. And
he's very valuable to that team, right?
No, you're right. I like their underrated picks. I think Fred Warner is a great pick. I don't disagree with you. I mean, he's an incredible player. This Niners defense is the number one defense. I looked the statistics up. Fewest yards allowed and the most turnovers in the league. So, it's hard to go. You pick a San Francisco guy for defense. It kind of makes sense. When we go to the official stuff, I think we anticipate Patrick Mahomes, probably Josh Jacobs or Josh Allen for offensive player, and then I think Nick Bosa will be the defensive player in terms of writing. But I appreciate we have our own.
What about Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts?
Do you think he's in the running for MVP?
Unfortunately, I think the last couple weeks he's miffed it too much, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but unfortunately to the media, not us, the media, it's statistics. If you didn't play a full season, which Jalen was hurt, they hold it against you. And at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes threw for 5,000 yards. He even got that bum from the Steelers to get 900 yards quietly. So, I mean, what more can you ask from this guy? Like you said, behind the back, like all kinds of stuff. He does everything. He was a wizard this year. So at the end of the day, I do believe it will be Pat Mahomes, like you're saying, for the MVP, though, not offensive player, but MVP. And we don't. Who knows? We'll figure it all out. But I believe Nick Bosa's the surefire defensive, and we got the MVP and Pat, and we'll see who the default the offense. Maybe it'll be Justin Jefferson. Who knows for the offensive player of the year? But that's going to be doing it for us for the wire. We hit it up for an hour and 10. Me and Sahi, 2-man show. It was always a good time with you, brother. I'm not going to do all the crazy plugs, but don't forget free messes on Fridays, as it always is, and you'll be seeing more Sahi there. So appreciate you guys tuning in, and tune in next week. We'll be here on Monday. Have a good one, fella.
We out.
We out.